With the heartbreaking news of Andrel Anthony, wide receiver for the Oklahoma Sooners, going down, the Sooners have placed themselves in a situation, kind of a little bit of a conundrum, as to who's next up. The good thing is for Oklahoma is it appears that Emmett Jones has made this room the strongest room on the team. So we're going to look through each player and determine who's going to be the one to step up and take Andrel's spot and be that next man up to make it happen. Let's dive into that, right? Before we do that, welcome to Unfair Sports. I'm your host, Jay. Thanks for pulling up to the channel. One of those coaches here at Oklahoma that we trust is Emmett Jones. And we've talked about this ad nauseum about how he has placed this Sooner team in a position to be prepared for a situation like this. And so when you dive into the numbers themselves, it makes you ask the question, who's going to be the next man up for the Oklahoma Sooners? Well, of course, we've got to talk about that. So let's look at the roster, look at the players, and answer that question. First, as we looked at Andrel Anthony, he came into the Texas game leading receiver for this team. Then you look at the numbers here, 27 catches, 429 yards, 15 yards per catch, and a touchdown. He has been lights out at wide receiver. He's great at getting open. And because of that, Oklahoma now has to find somebody that can take over what great things Andrel Anthony was doing for this team. And so we go through the list of receivers. These are the players that are available because this is the good thing. Now, we had concerns as fans that Oklahoma wasn't doing enough to force feed the top players on a regular basis. And so I totally understood that concern and that worry because, it's logical. Totally understand where that comes from. But at the same time, if you notice for Oklahoma, they had 8 receivers catch a pass this season, at least one pass this season. And so when we go and look at the receptions there, team has some spots. So you have Jalil Farooq, who's one of your outside receivers. He's at 20 catches for 415. We anticipate him being that guy that becomes number one again. But the thing about it is that opposing teams expect the exact same thing. He was the guy that we anticipated was to be our number one this season. He didn't end up being that, mainly because teams are scheming to stop Jalil Farooq. That's just how good of a talent he is. And so what we do, try to spread it around. Andrel Anthony became next. But the other players on this list that's really going up, let's look at Nic Anderson. 11 catches, 282 yards receiving, and he's walked in with 6 touchdowns. At one point, he had 3 catches for 3 touchdowns. He's got 6 touchdowns on those 11 catches, 282 yards and 25 yards per catch. And so now you're looking for a deep threat, a player that can stretch the field and cause problems. At his 6'4" frame, he could be that guy. He may be the guy that now takes over and becomes the wide receiver. You're like, oh, I think we've got something going here. But even past Nic Anderson, it may be time to see the emergence of 2 receivers that I believe should see more game while also being that bookend next to Jalil Farooq. It's Jayden Gibson. I anticipate seeing a lot more Gibson on the field, mainly because at 6'5", he's got some pretty solid hands this season. He has overcome the big issue he had coming into this season, which was dropping those balls. As a freshman last year, ask a Sooner fan, they'll tell you they weren't sold on him. They basically were out the door on our guy, Jayden Gibson, because, he had a tendency of dropping good passes. Well, this year, he's gotten a lot better. Now, granted, he did drop one in the Red River, and it was a deep pass that was right there on the left hand, but he was also being held back on this right arm. So his left hand was trying to fingertip it in, and it doesn't work out that way, right? Well, he's coming in here, 6 catches, 159, averaging 26 yards per catch, 2 touchdowns. So he has an opportunity to be a big threat deep and catching slants, post, getting out there and making some things happen. He's not the only one to really keep your eyes on. LV Bunkley-Shelton. Now, I know the coaches have made mention before, and actually somebody said this in my comments and reminded me. Coaches have said he's considered the best route runner on the team. Now, LV Bunkley-Shelton transferring in from Arizona State, you expected to see more out of him. And unfortunately, we haven't. But that doesn't mean we won't. 5'11", 195. He's got some skills, especially in the ability of getting open. Oklahoma could throw out a route tree or a package that lets LV get out there and really show out. Now, we don't know what that means past, I'd say, the first game against UCF, because that's when we'll probably see what things are going through Jeff Levy's mind, as well as Emmett Jones' mind, on how they want to use a player and what packages makes the most sense. But on the outside, adding LV Bunkley-Shelton or even a Brenan Thompson, who's recovering from that ankle injury and he's looking good, gives Dillon Gabriel some playmakers that he can go deep with, cross the middle with, so many options. And so the only thing that's a blessing here is that this is the deepest room on the team. Now, if anybody, I want Andrew Anthony. I would prefer to keep him to continue because he was having a breakout season, looking like we was getting close to having 2,000-yard receivers. But that doesn't mean it won't happen. There's still a chance. Just requires a little bit more work. A few more things need to go down in order for it to happen. But I don't want to forget about the slot guys. Drake Stoops, Gavin Freeman, Jaquez Petaway, Brenan Thompson. The list goes on for what we can do in the wide receiver room, luckily. So even though I'm kind of nervous, a little bit concerned, curious to what it would look like, I know that our wide receivers will be able to put something together and make the magic happen. So as we look at this going forward, who do you think is going to be the one to step up? Who's going to be that player that takes over? Who's going to be that one that shocks us by doing some things? Hop in the comments. Let me know what's your thoughts. Love to hear from you all on what player you think will be the one that steps up and takes the reins as the number 1 or number 2 receiver. The good thing is we've got a catalog of receivers to choose from. So, I have zero stress when it comes to that. If you made it this far, you like the content, hit the like button. If you're new to the channel, subscribe. Love to have you join this great family of college football fans, talking a lot of OU football and college football in general. And so YouTube says watch one of these videos. I highly recommend it. Picked it out for you. And let's see what these Sooners look like going forward. Keep in mind, got 6 games left with the midway point. All we got to do is continue to show it like we did before. And with that, we'll top it up soon. Peace.